thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah.
I threw some accusations your way, which were like 90% true, not true at all.
Let's call it 75%.
75% true spare. I have to ask for 95, so you give me 75.
Yeah. When's a good time for us to clear that up?
Yeah.
Just share some facts.
So I accused you of stealing $500 million because you exited Val Cinema. 500,000, same exact number.
Yep.
I've been saying that all week, and Elliot's been just making fun of me.
500 million?
Yes, she's like $500 million worth of groceries.
If you had 500 million for me to steal, I would have stole it.
Yeah, I know you would. If you stole $500 million from me, I think that'd be okay.
Yeah.
I feel like it'd be.
I'd share. I'd give back. I would tie.
That's a whole different level of like. That's a whole different problem to have. No, so we started Val Cinema 2017. There's a whole backstory behind that, and you exited. And I know that the numbers are need to be cleared up a little bit. What are the exact details?
Okay, so I don't have exact numbers. I don't have all of the stuff in front of me, but just round ballpark numbers. Number one, the valuation of the company was
the entire
roughly 500,000 when I sold it.
Well,
now I had a partner that took a share at the time, and so we subtract your partner's share, and then we had debt on the company, so you subtract the debt from that as well.
Yes.
So my takeaway was actually much less than 500,000, and then we owner financed it over the period of 24 months, and so that actually turns out much different than 500,000.
Yeah.
So everybody. Also,
so
I didn't steal any of it from you.
There was a couple of times you came to me and you were like, I think you're legally still on the documents. Like, we never took your name off. And I was like,
no, well, there was a very unofficial way when you left Val.
I never left I never signed anything.
Yeah, we never had a lawyer involved. So I basically just erased your name from the document.
Yes.
And then.
But you didn't do that for like 6 months afterwards, didn't you?
It was a little while, yeah. We weren't really worried about it. Yeah, because I wasn't actually stealing anything.
And I wasn't
in a rush.
I wasn't really savvy enough to go and like steal the company back. But we haven't talked about the breakdown. So what brought it to that $500,000 evaluation mark? So the company was valued at $500,000 because of X.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that factor in when you're actually valuing a company. We actually had somebody come in and do a proper valuation for it. It was a little bit less than 500,000, but essentially we took the profit from the company, and then they took different risk factors and different things about the business that would give it what's called a multiple. So in different businesses, you get different multiples. I don't know if they give us a 3.5 or a 4x multiple. Sometimes, some businesses are more risky, so you only get like a 2x multiple. Some businesses are really profitable, or really low risk, so you get a 10x multiple.
Yeah.
Well, what the multiple means is if you profit $100,000 a year, then a 3.5x multiple means your business is worth $350,000.
That makes sense.
So it doesn't really matter what you make in revenue, because our company was doing about $100,000 a month in revenue at that point. So we made over $1 million a year, but it doesn't mean you're really $1 million business.
Yeah. And then you were in a much more risky environment than a lot of different businesses because it was a service-based business. Like, did that affect the evaluation a lot?
Well, there were certain risks that came into play, like the fact that we're in the wedding industry. So every customer is a one-time customer, right? You don't have repetitive or reoccurring monthly revenue like a lot of other businesses. So that's a negative risk factor for us. But the positive factor was the fact that our profit margins were so high. So that's actually a really good thing for us. So, we would book a $2,500 wedding package, and the profit margin after, hiring a contractor to shoot that wedding or paying editors to edit that wedding or the advertising cost, we still came out with about a 50 to 60% profit margin on top of that. And that doesn't mean that's what we're profiting. That just means that's the profit margin
for the actual creation of the product.
Right. And then, lights, employees, all of that stuff, marketing into play. But the profit margin was much higher than a lot of other companies. And so that kind of outweighed some of the risk there. So we still got a decent multiple, which I think it was probably a 3.5x multiple. I don't have all the numbers in front of me, but it was somewhere in there.
I always call it a wedding booking agency. It wasn't like a wedding film studio. It kind of was because you guys,
booking agency.
Yeah, like because you would find dozens, hundreds of contractors all over the U.S. And then you would find brides, and then you had a very specific system that you guys created to get those brides serviced. And there was a really specific and unique value add that I feel like a lot of people in our industry didn't like, but I feel like a lot of brides did like, because you guys had pretty consistent high reviews.
Yeah, I mean, most of our reviews were good, and we had a lot of reviews. We had a lot of bookings, though, too.
Yeah.
So compared to the average wedding videographer that does 12 weddings a year,
Yes.
we did 300 weddings a year. And so obviously we can get more reviews. And we did our best to have good customer service and good relationships with our customers. So we mostly got good reviews. Obviously, we're also more likely to get bad reviews than the average videographer, because there's more people. It's kind of like Amazon. When you service that many people, you're obviously going to let somebody down. And so we did get bad reviews from time to time, and that was obviously not ideal. But then we would go in and try to rebuild that relationship with that customer, and sometimes they would take it down. Or
you guys did a lot of that.
But yeah, it was hard, because the wedding industry is primarily driven by reviews.
Yes.
You read reviews really heavily in the wedding industry when you're booking vendors for your wedding. So it was really important to us, and unfortunately, sometimes we felt like we were being manipulated.
Right.
Sometimes it would feel like that, where people would just say, we know we didn't do anything wrong, but people would really fight and try and write a bad review.
Yeah.
So we would have to refund people.
Yes.
I didn't really think needed the refund, but it just happens like that sometimes.
Yeah, and I feel like you guys probably built a pretty strong reputation around, was you guys were like heavy on customer service, experience of the bride, what they're getting. Because I don't think you ever claimed this, you guys weren't like the most creative, amazing wedding film company in the entire world, where you had like the best wedding films. You had good wedding films, and I think even on the website it was like every bride should have a wedding film.
The biggest regret, most of our customers or friends and family that would get married that didn't get a wedding package, myself included.
Yep.
My business partner Sean at the time, him included as well. We always regret it, and most companies would say, "Hey, we really regret not getting a wedding package or a video package." Yeah. So that was our big sales pitch, was, "Hey, we don't want you to regret it. We think everybody deserves to remember their wedding day," and that was really what we were trying to push as a company. But we weren't the best quality, we weren't the best, we had really good customer service, but there were areas that we dropped the ball, things that we could have improved on over time. And so, we weren't the best, but what we really focused on was scale, doing a lot and keeping costs down so that we could keep the price of a wedding package affordable for the average wedding client, whereas a lot of our competitors would charge $3,000 plus. We tried to stay around the $2,000 mark.
Was it like, what was the range on the lowest end to the highest end?
The lowest pack, there are different phases of cinema, right?
Yeah,
when it was you and our first wedding package,
I think it was like $700.
It was $700, I think. Yeah, so $700 for that wedding package. Our highest package that Sean and I ever booked was probably $6,000 or $7,000, and so they go up there, but that's like multiple days, multiple shooters, 12 hours each day. So obviously, the costs they make sense at that point when you're charging that much. But our average booking was $2,200 across the board.
Interesting. Scaling all the way back to the first question, did you steal the company from me? No, my brother did not steal. He's not a thief. No, he did not steal it from me.
No. And just bring some context to that. Every startup does something that's called a vesting period with a 1-year cliff. And essentially what that means is we're going into an agreement. We didn't do this, but this is how every company works, so it's normal. How it works is you come into an agreement saying, "Hey, I own 50%, you own 50%. We're going to start this company." That means over the period of 4 years, all of our equity in the company is going to vest every year. And so I own 50%, but I can't claim that 50% except for after I've been there for 4 years. And if I leave early, then I only get what amount that I vest.
That's super fascinating.
And they do what's called a 1-year cliff, which means if you leave within the first year, you get zero equity.
Interesting.
That is normal across the board for startups to prevent exactly what happened, where you start a company, you get 50%, and then you're like, you know what? I don't really care anymore. I'm not excited about this, so I leave. And then I work my butt off for 4 more years and then sell it for $500,000, and somehow you magically get $250,000.
Dude,
so that's why those structures exist. We didn't put that down in paperwork, but it is. That's essentially what we did under a handshake agreement.
Essentially, yeah. But could you have done that? Like, let's say I was a complete douche canoe and came back and was trying to steal the company. Could you have essentially gone to a judge or a lawyer and said, "Hey, This is really clear information about how much we both put in. He left.
Probably.
Here's the text. Here's the threads, and said like, we didn't put a vesting period, but do I get control? But
Yeah, it would have been a sloppy court battle. That's why I would have preferred to take you out back. We would have handled this with this.
no.
We would have because we're family. But no, in a court battle, it just would have been sloppy.
Yeah.
And I don't know who would have won because we didn't really do that. And this is why I'm a big advocate now for if you're going to go into business with somebody, whether it's family or not. We did a loan with our parents when we first started Valsena.
Gosh, yeah.
And we did a contract.
Did we
wrote out
pay that
all
off
the terms
ever?
Actually, yes, we.
Okay. I was like, yeah, no.
No, we paid that off all. Like,
Imagine they come back and they're like, hey, so that was worth 10% of the company then?
No, but we did a contract with our own parents because we wanted to make sure that, that it's not even just about holding anybody accountable. It's so that you don't forget what you originally agreed to. Because if you don't put stuff on paper, I don't care how close you are, 6 months from now, you're not going to remember what was agreed to.
100%.
Because
a day or two later. I do this obnoxiously with like everything now. When I was working at Passage, Errol wanted me to, every time that we start a meeting, say, here is the agenda for this meeting.
Yeah.
This is a clear reason. And it was really funny when Ellie and I went into marriage counseling. I literally sat down and said, here's the agenda for this marriage counseling meeting. And they laughed at me, but then Ellie was like, this is great. Like, I have no clue what we're doing here. But it's stupid. But like without that clear set of expectations, it always happens. And expectations
are huge across the board, legally, in business, in marriage, in friendships. Like if you don't have proper expectations set in advance, then it's really hard for everybody to be on the same page and then to actually accomplish what you're trying to accomplish because everybody has their own idea in their head.
So this is where it becomes interesting, and this is obviously reality versus feelings versus like we can talk about where we were. What was this 5-6 years ago?
It's 6 years.
6 years, which is for
2017, whatever the math is.
Yeah, whatever the math is, 2023 now. When I left, I felt like you stole it from me.
Sure.
Like, right? Like I was like, oh my gosh, I could do this. I could go X, Y, and Z. Because I was like super young, didn't have a lot of like, was not gregarious or disagreeable, as Peterson would love to say. Like I was very agreeable, very like young, didn't feel like I had anything. And you were passionate, had a family, ready to like be strong. And so when I left, I didn't feel like I had the ability to say what I wanted, even when starting the business. So I felt like it was stolen.
Sure.
Oh, should you give everything to the people who aren't willing to take it? Like those people who aren't strong, those people who are disadvantaged?
Sure, yeah.
Or is there a reality that it was my responsibility, even though I didn't have the strength to do this, to take ownership of what I wanted then?
Yeah. And
like
there's shared responsibility, right? Because on your part, if you don't ask for what you want, you won't get what you want. And that's like that's in sales, but that really isn't anything in life. If you don't say, hey, this is what I want, then you're not going to get it. And if you don't get it, sucks for you.
Yes, 100%.
But on my side of the table, I know that I am a more strong personality, a little bit more of an aggressive individual. And so I know that I've learned back then, I was very young in that experience of like knowing that about myself.
Yeah.
I knew that I was an aggressive individual. I didn't really know what was my responsibility.
Right.
And I've been learning that over the years. And we've had this conversation 1,000 times. This is not the first time we're having this conversation.
We cried. Oh my God.
But like I've learned over the years that like, okay, ultimately I am an aggressive individual. So I need to be aware of that in relationships.
Yes.
And do what I can. And I'm not going to hold your responsibility for you.
Yes.
But I can do what I can to make you feel safe and comfortable to approach me.
100%.
That's a hard balance for someone like me to find, just like it's a hard balance for someone like you to find of, hey, you know what, this is what I want from this situation.
Yeah.
And so a part of that is just learning how to balance relationships. Part of that's learning how to set expectations better ahead of time. We should have put it out, investing with a 1-year cliff in place on paper beforehand so that there's no feelings hurt.
100%.
Because then you would have been like, oh, well, we agreed to this, so I want to walk away. Is it important enough for me to walk away and not get anything?
Yes.
And you wouldn't have felt like you got stolen from
100%.
because it was on paper.
100%. So the reason I left, really brass tacks was, and I don't know how much we've talked about this, we talked about a future that was like, hey, 3 years out. And anytime somebody lays this out for me, I'm like, peace, I'm out. This is like every single person I've worked with. But we laid out a future that was like 3 years out that just was not attractive to me.
Sure.
And I was just not mature enough to be like, hey, I'm not going to take that future. This is the future that I want. This is really clearly what I want. Because my least favorite thing to do is confrontation. I hate confrontation. Even now that I'm a lot better at it, and it's still my issue. It's still what I run into whenever I work on projects or push through projects or want something that is really important to me, is this needs to be uncomfortable and I need to just accept and love that. Like this, I've really wanted to like do more uncomfortable things. So we grew up pretty modest, right? Like just not gym lockers in the football room and they're just like slapping each other with towels completely naked. I'm like, what in the world? Because we were homeschooled. Yesterday was Valentine's Day. And so Ellie and I went to Jeju sauna. So the sauna area is co-ed, but they give you something to wear. The shower and bathing area is not co-ed and you are not allowed to wear clothes. Like, it's not like, hey,
that's funny.
It's pretty funny, dude. It's not like, oh, you can walk in and change. It's like, no, you have to go in there, go in the hot tub, go take a shower, go in the cold tub before you go out.
That's funny. Yes. I don't know what this has to do with the conversation right now, but that's funny.
I'm just going to go for it. This is uncomfortable. I don't like being immodest.
Okay,
this is weird. Let me like stretch myself. And so I just went and sat in a hot tub with like 6 other naked dudes. And it was really freaking weird. But it was really funny because I was like, oh my gosh, this is really uncomfortable. And then after about 10 minutes, I started to relax and like really enjoy myself. And really stop thinking about all the things that were around me. But it was weird, man. They had these like scrubbing areas. They were called body shampoos. Yeah. And so it was a corner of the bathroom. And you go and you pay, I think it's like $60. And they'll take a brush, like a horse brush. And they pour a bunch of shampoo on you like in a movie. And they just scrub you, dude. And it is not private. Like it's not a private area. You just lay down, just naked. And this man comes up in these like super short boxers that are soaking wet. And he just comes up to you and he's just like scraping you, lifting up his leg, scrape it. Like it was super freaking weird. This has nothing to do with the lesson.
He's sponsored by me.
That being said, I'm not what's the word? Like a relaxation person. I like stimulus. Yeah. But yesterday was actually one of the first times I went through that. That was interesting. And then I got dressed and I went into the sauna area and I laid in a salt rock sauna, like hot. Yeah. For like maybe an hour and a half. Yeah. And actually just relaxed. And I don't know if the discomfort thing had anything to do with that.
Maybe. You probably felt better that you had clothes on.
Oh my God, it felt so much better. Yeah. It was so, and I will say, this is not some lesson, but it's just funny. I was so uncomfortable and got over it that I had no issue laying on the floor in front of a bunch of people with clothes on because that was not uncomfortable at all in comparison. But I do think that does correlate back to when you feel like something is impossible to do. Like uncomfortable, not your nature. Like I'm a modest person. It is not my nature to take what God has given me and share it with the rest of the world. It is not at all. But I do think that getting uncomfortable gave me everything I needed to get what I wanted on the other end, which was relax. Yeah. And I think confrontation and just uncomfortable situations give us exactly what we want on the other end. But when we don't have any perspective to confrontation being successful, whether it's because we gave up or we didn't have a good experience with confrontation or we didn't have a good ability to like fight for what was important to us, all we have to reference is failure, but we have no ability to reference, oh my gosh, this other side is so much easier. Yeah. Like so much easier. But we kept coming to confrontation and I kept backing down. Yeah. And so all the reference I had for confrontation between us was just, so I think the next step of our relationship is to go to Jeju and sit in a bathtub.
No, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah. Like I've heard the quote and I'm probably going to botch it, but everything you want in life is just on the other side of comfortability, Yeah. And how you 100%. Have to like go through this process of getting uncomfortable and doing what you don't feel naturally comfortable doing to get what you want in life, And so obviously your scenario at the sauna is an example of that. But, confrontation is a huge one for everyone, whether it's in business or marriage or whatever, just friendships. Confrontation is usually what ends up preventing you from getting what you want out of that relationship or that business experience because you're too scared to have confrontation. I'm no freaking excuse. I naturally confront people a little bit more so than the average individual, but there are countless scenarios as a business leader that I was just afraid to have confrontation. I was afraid to fire somebody that I should have fired a long time ago, for whatever reason. I was afraid to have the hard conversations with an employee that I should have had earlier, you know, just to actually, instead of just saying, oh, well, they need to be fired. Well, maybe they just need to be coached, you know, and the lack of comfort or the confrontation or the, you know, actually having some friction in the relationship that prevents you from getting what you want. And it also, you're robbing them of an opportunity to grow because you're scared to have a conversation with them. And so I think, I'm 100% on board with the fact that comfort, though necessary in certain seasons, usually does prevent you from getting something that you want out of a certain season of life.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I think, obviously all of that applies to our experience with Val Cinema, but I think it applies, and it's not discomfort in friction, it's discomfort in whatever capacity. Because I think the version of us working together forever ago with Val Cinema, and this is not like, ooh, now we're working on a new business. No.
Now you.
The version back then was probably uncomfortable with like really, really patient conversations. One of the books I've referenced is called Quiet, and that book was phenomenal for me. I would not be married today if it wasn't for that book, because my wife is extremely like a very talented introverted person, like has so much value to add as an introvert. And I would not be able to have like the kind of relationship I have with her without that kind of preference. I think you've naturally developed those skills. And the idea is like we worship gregariousness or being outgoing, like more like a domineering person. And we don't see the value of the focus work that introverted people can do.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Especially in the workplace, like they talk about that all the time, that if you're outgoing and more outspoken, then you usually succeed more in your career. But I mean, look at this entire realm of professions that really take quiet focused work.
Yeah.
Software development.
100%.
You know, obviously art and the things that Ellie does. And you know, there's so many things that take focused work to actually get quality out of what you're trying to accomplish. But then all the attention goes to the people that are doing sales or, you know, management or leadership. And that it is a shame, especially for people like you and me, that we have to recognize that sometimes, because I think it's hard for me to remember sometimes that just because someone's quiet doesn't mean that they don't add just as much value as I am.
Yes. Like I feel like you've gone from I am a passionate person who can build things and push things forwards and lead, to somebody who's actually able to see problems, see opportunities, slow down enough to look at things from a different angle. Like your bookshelf at home. I remember it used to be like this one row of books on your shelf at the office, and it was like heavy hitter books, bro, like Grant Cardone 10X, like punch him in the face, go hunt him, kill him, which is like where we started. But now the stack is so much more diverse. Your catalog went from one color to I feel like now 4. Like there's so much broader information and respect for other people.
Yeah.
And I feel like I left Val Cinema because I didn't see a future there. And I feel like you left Val Cinema because you didn't see a future there.
Yeah.
Which is super fair. I mean, we're both quitters. We didn't quit. You just quit with more than me.
Okay.
No, that's not the case at all. But I do think you left because you wanted to move on to what was something that was important to you, which I'd love to hear about. But I'd love to explore also like what was that perfect world if we were who we were now with that project that we did, which was like Valentin, this little Valentin cinematography club.
Which by the way, that was the original name, was Valentin Cinematography, and I was just like, it just seems like a mouthful, you know, and so we shortened it to Val Cinema, but that's what
it was like Valentin Cinematography, and then it was like Valen Films was one of them. This stupid name.
We had some trash names.
Or some trash names. And then our first fight was about how to place the Val Cinema on a circle on a business card.
Oh yeah.
Bro, we were like yelling at each other, and then we got a call while yelling at each other about our first booking. We were like,
I remember that. That was our first booking. Yeah. we were in the middle of an argument, and then we were like, I don't care anymore. We just made some money.
It was like, it was that $700 wedding.
Yeah. Which, by the way, for people that think, for wedding clients that are booking a photographer or a videographer that think they're too late or they haven't booked with enough time. Our first booking was less than 24 hours before the wedding.
Dude, we
literally hung up the phone and packed our bag and showed up the next morning for the wedding.
And we got a third shooter just to be fancy with a gimbal like the same day.
That was like of money.
Seriously.
Well, no, I don't think we did. That was Shane Chanka, which it turned out to be a phenomenal relationship.
Yeah, dude, he's out there making a bunch of money and buying a bunch of cars.
Yeah, I love Shane.
Dude, he's so crazy, dude. I love him.
He's always crashing another car. Huh?
I
don't know. He's totaled a couple of cars, but I love you, Shane.
I love you, Shane. So obviously we moved on. The evaluation was $500,000 ish, but you guys were producing whenever you left on revenue $800,000-$900,000 in revenue a year, or was it 700?
No, the year that I left, we did 1.1 million in revenue.
Yeah.
So that was it was funny. I was actually really excited to hit our first $1 million year, and I left 3 months before we actually hit our first $1 million year. So whatever. But yeah, that was where we were at, was in the roughly, $80,000 to $100,000+ a month in revenue. We would have some smaller months here and there and some bigger months, obviously seasonally. But
yeah, you sold it for half the revenue of the company, essentially, like a range.
Yeah.
But there are so many different kinds of companies with lower product fees, lower marketing fees that will sell, like they'll be producing $1 million in revenue and they'll sell for 3 times that amount.
Yeah, it depends on the business and how you value your company. It depends on how fast you grew your company. It depends on, the different risk factors. Like I said, we don't have repetitive business from people. So we have to re-earn a new customer every single time, which just changes how you can value a company. So everything is different. Software startups have a completely different valuation model. And so, when there will be companies that are doing $20,000 a month in revenue, and you can literally sell them for $1 million.
Yeah,
and so it's a different model.
Yeah, that's so odd, because I think there was a company I worked with recently who had, and I won't say who, like a $20 million evaluation, and we were not producing revenue at all, which doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand that side of things very much. But what I do understand is that if you have a clear customer journey, it's a lot easier to then say, hey, this is the lifetime value of the customer. Yeah. Your biggest struggle with the company was every single customer was a hunt. It wasn't a fun,
and then they were done. It was a one-time thing.
But you didn't see how you could build a farm or a lifetime customer value out of the people you were working with.
Yeah, part of our problem at Val Cinema, part of my problem as an individual is being creative enough to expand product offerings. And so, that was something that we really struggled with at Val Cinema, because we had basically, our head was just so stuck in every time we wanted to launch a new product or a new service, we had to think a new ad revenue stream.
Yes.
And so we had to spend money on advertising. There was a point where I was spending,
it was like 20 grand?
No, 40 grand in ads, to make 80 or 100.
How many impressions were you getting off of that?
That's a lot. I don't know. It wasn't exactly like social media advertising.
Yeah.
We did more
like the wedding.
It was almost like billboard advertising on not wedding wear. But essentially we would get, 2,000 leads from that. We spent a lot of money in advertising to make 100 grand, 80 grand. And that's not a scalable model.
Yes.
Like a scalable model is you spend 10 grand on advertising and you get these customers that now you can play referrals. Now you can, and they're going to stay with you month after month after month. And so, your cost per acquisition weighs different than our cost per acquisition, because our cost per acquisition was a one-time thing.
Yeah.
It was a big purchase, $2,500, $3 grand, but then you're done. Then you go away.
The difficulty was expanding the product line and then looking at different opportunities. I think you guys started to consider expanding the amount of products you would sell to each bride, which was like, hey, we're doing video, we're going to do photo, we're going to do DJ services, we're going to basically
that was where our head was.
Yeah, it was like, how do we take this $500 acquisition cost, which is probably lower, higher, whatever, and we're making $2 grand off of it right now, so we're profiting $1,500.
Right.
And how do we turn that into $5,000?
Yeah, exactly. That was where our head was at. We were thinking that's how we were going to expand, which that was all I knew at the time. I was a young individual in business that didn't really know any better. Back then I thought, I remember when I first wanted to go into business, I was like, I'm going to make millions off of owning a coffee shop. That was where my head was at, to where now I'm like, I understand more about real big startups and software startups and, venture capital and things like that. But like at the time at Val Cinema, I didn't know any better.
Yes.
So I was like, well, let's just do more of what we do.
Yeah.
And that's how we'll get bigger. And it worked a little bit. When we launched photography, we did kind of 1.5x our revenue.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really work over and over and over again like that. And so you do have to be more creative. You do have to get with modern times by offering technology options, technology products.
Yes.
Like software. And so that was where we started to think of our
Yeah.
product. Was the concept was basically have your wedding guests film the wedding on their iPhones and we'll edit it for you. And we were going to develop a whole app. Lots of learned lessons there, but it didn't work.
It started down the path of, do I actually care about this person? And because of that, I can have creativity to then figure out what problems they're having. But the question I have is, when you came up with that idea, was it, here's a fun idea for a product? Or did it come from, this is the problems that our brides are saying they're running into? Like,
no, yeah. So when it originally came up, Sean, I don't remember where we were eating. It was probably Waffle House, where Sean and I always went. But it was basically, hey, we need to get into tech.
Yeah.
We need to launch a software product of some shape or form. Yeah. Don't know how. What do you think? And Sean had mentioned an idea that he had using an app to basically film the wedding, and have it. Like the grand idea was have it auto edit. We build technology that basically automatically edits the video for you. Yeah. And we could sell $99 wedding films, something like that. That was like the grand idea. But obviously everything starts with, MVPs, minimum viable products. So we kind of figured out a smaller way to launch something. But it wasn't what problems are our customers having. Yes. It was, what's some cool new thing we can do?
100%.
We know we need to do that. And sometimes that works, but sometimes it doesn't. Yes. What always works is what problems are our customers having and how can we solve them? Yeah, it always works.
I heard Ryan recently talk about how there's like people blowing up on TikTok. They have a really creative, fancy idea. There's some superstar that gets some amazing product out there. Yeah. You might get a huge result from it, but it's not reliable. Yeah. But what is reliable, and this is what I'm like super bullish on, the only skill set I actually want to grow is, how do you actually care about the customer that you're serving? Yeah. Which I think we did to an extent. Like we
really didn't care about the people.
But I think
but we didn't know how to solve, we didn't know how to ask the question of like, hey, what are you dealing with every day that you wish somebody could solve? Yes. We didn't know how to ask those questions. We were kind of solving our own problems. Yeah. We were literally just like, oh, well, like I remember when you left Val Cinema and I lost an editor and I didn't know how to edit films. Yeah. Yeah. Like I had to start hiring contractors to solve my own problem, which created a whole new opportunity to scale nationally. Yes. We went from 10 weddings a year to 100 weddings a year because now we could book out of state. And so I was solving my own problems. I wasn't saying, how can I solve my customer's problem?
Yes, which I think is really good for the starting process. They even say like for any physical product, any digital product brand, like the customer that you should be serving is yourself. And so find like 5 things. If you're going on a weight loss journey, find a weight loss journey product.
It does
document that. Like you got to find that process. But obviously whenever you've grown to a certain extent, you have to take the mirror off of yourself and then reflect it on the customer. And that transition is hard.
Well, the difference is like me solving problems for myself of like, well, I'm thirsty. I'm going to go get water. Yeah. I just solved my own problem. Yeah. But with Val Cinema, I was solving a problem that I had, but I wasn't turning the problem that I was solving into a user base or a customer base. So in that scenario, turning that into a user base or a customer base would have been offering some type of service to all of the videographers that don't know how to grow their company. Right. Because I was solving my own problem. Yeah. Other people have that problem. Yeah. But solving a customer's problem at your business would be, what is my customer dealing with? It works if I have a problem that my customer also has. Yeah. But it doesn't work if I'm solving a problem for myself and I'm not turning that into a customer base. I'm just helping myself, but now I just go back to helping my customer with the original problem.
I was like stargaze with weddings and brides and all of this jazz because I was just dumb and excessively romantic.
By the way. I did not want to do weddings.
I hated weddings afterwards because I shot too many. Bro, my favorite line when I'm talking about Val Cinema was too many brides and not enough bridesmaids, because I had so much game. Bro, I had so much game when I was at a wedding. I was like so fly and cool and slick.
He's a great character at a wedding. He really is.
But I never freaking asked a girl out at a wedding. And it was the time I was like the coolest, which praise God now. I love my wife. I love my life. But I'm like, bro, where did all of that game go? Because it never followed me after the wedding. It was just there.
You were just in the zone with the camera. You hand a camera. It's kind of like somebody that's singing on stage 100%. And they're comfortable behind a guitar. Like it's your comfort zone, and so like Some people are really uncomfortable in other scenarios. The camera was your comfort zone. But, we haven't even really told the whole story of Valcinema and how it got started. But basically, we just started as a video production company. I wanted to do more music videos, and commercials, and eventually feature films. Valcinema eventually did a feature film. But for some reason, the easiest thing for us in terms of making money was weddings, because there are so many people, 2.5 million weddings every year in the United States. And people have a budget, they're willing to pay for it. It's a proven product. And so we just kind of fell into that out of necessity. It wasn't something that we wanted, but we basically, I remember having a meeting with the guys on staff at the time, and we decided, hey, you know what? We're only going to do weddings. We're not going to do anything else. And we had to start turning away other products because it becomes a distraction.
Yeah. Because you guys were doing real estate projects, little small commercial projects.
Anything that we could do to pay the bills, but then we just started turning them down.
Once you start saying no to things, you actually start making money.
Yeah, you do start growing.
Yes.
Yeah. We just started growing in something we didn't really want.
And we started talking to other wedding companies, other wedding videographers. And one of the fun claim to fames is we got really close with with Eric Decker.
Eric.
Bro, friggin'
Why don't you text me back, man, now that you got 2 million subscribers?
So Eric Decker is now super, mega famous.
He's got literally millions of subscribers.
He hangs out with Mr. Beast on at least a monthly basis. It's very stupid.
Yeah.
But he went and did all of that. Before that, he basically had a duplicate company of ours.
Flint and Steel Studios was Eric Decker, Josiah Selvage. Friggin' love those dudes. Still love Eric, even though you won't text me back. Text me back if you want, but I still love that dude. Anyway, I remember talking with them when we were like, hey, we want to do exactly what you guys want to do. And they had just grown to do, I think, 20 weddings or 30 weddings that year.
Yeah.
Right. And they were doing them all themselves, and they were charging a pretty good price and everything. If you're a videographer, it was the easiest way to make money.
And you had a little bit of a background because you didn't get your wedding footage. Like, you had a bad customer.
I had a story. Yeah.
And
which is really funny.
Yeah.
Because eventually, so what happened is we hired our friend to film the wedding.
Oh, yeah.
They lost all of the footage. And what's really funny is we use that story to sell hundreds of wedding videos. It's like, don't hire your friends, hire a professional. We'll take care of you. Freaking 5 years later,
You hired him.
I hired Jordan. No, I don't think I hired Jordan. My ops manager hired Jordan or whatever. I don't know. He came a long way. He grew up. But he was shooting the wedding. I was telling people, don't do this. Don't hire your friends because they'll lose the wedding footage. Hire us. And then I was sending that dude that lost my wedding footage to their wedding. I was like, how ironic is this? I was like, doesn't lose footage anymore, guys. Don't worry. But that was funny. I was like, wow, this is ironic. But
I wonder if he even knew. I wonder if he had any clue. Because I've
probably not, because I never told him, hey, I've been throwing you under the bus for years now.
He's gonna watch this and be like,
I know. I was like, hey, it's okay. Sorry, I didn't say your name. I just
he did say his name.
Well, I didn't say his name on the phone with the customers. Okay. Yeah, I said his name here. Sorry, Jordan.
Jordan, you're awesome. I love you. No, 100%. We had a story, so we had a reason to care about brides, but I don't think that we didn't have the muscle, right? We didn't have the muscle to be like, all right, this is a person. What is their journey, their story? Where are they going? One of the companies I worked for, Rivet Events, love them. They're awesome. Go pay them, all of that jazz. But they were really good. And he was the one who introduced me to Story Brand.
I remember.
Yeah. He was super heavy on Story Brand. And so what he was trying to do was make wedding conferences every single year. And so essentially they would pay $2,000 for their package, and they would come to a marriage event once a year for another $1,000. And it would be like a week-long retreat. And so they would go through a cycle of a long-term life cycle of a customer, which I don't know how they're doing, if they did that or if they kind of hit a wall. I'm sure there's some terrible thing about the wedding industry where it's really, really hard to actually do this. But I feel like there were so many ways to have served brides after they get married in super cheap ways, super cheap ways. Because one of the things that I've heard is the best place to get a customer is at the beginning of their customer journey. And the customer journey of a bride is literally, I am starting marriage and I am starting to get the bank account of a dude who's going to pay for crap for me, and for us and our relationship.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a way to have monetized that.
Yeah.
We didn't figure it out.
We did.
But that's what Zola's doing. Zola's a huge, they're like the Not in Wedding Wire, but another competitor. They're actually one of the first true tech startups in the wedding industry, because the Not in Wedding Wire did not start out as tech companies. They started out as magazines, and then they expanded, right? Well, Zola started it off as a tech company, and they're an app, and essentially they got their break with registries.
Yeah.
But they're doing the same thing. They're trying to follow the customer journey and expand into, baby registries and the baby journey, because you just follow the customer journey, right? We were nobodies.
Yeah.
Val Cinema had no idea how to do that, but Zola, they're doing the same thing. They're trying to follow the customer journey, but they're worth $600 million.
Yes, that's a whole different thing.
It's a different kind of, you have smarter people on the team. That's where I really loved our team, but we needed more people.
Yes. I think communities are a big part of that. That's why I secretly really still want to go, but the capitalism conference is happening this year. It's in April.
Sure.
It's like $3,000 for it though, which is ludicrous.
Well, you know the guy, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know Ryan. I've talked to Ryan personally, but we're not on like a first name basis, but I know,
well, you're using his first name. So Ryan, send us some tickets.
I mean, he does basically everybody who's in his community. He's like that pastor dad vibe, but,
is he a pastor?
No, but he did.
Is he a dad?
He's a dad.
Okay, well, good. Dad.
Yes, he went to seminary. I loved the communities like that because it was just a bunch of people making money in different ways.
Yeah.
They centered around physical products. I like physical products, but let's take Val Cinema, for example.
Sure.
Average customer, $2,200, right? Like how many brides did you guys actually service?
I was there for 4 years. I ran it for 4 years from 2017 to 2021, I think. And I sold it. We closed the business when I sold it on August 2nd, which was when you and I had started in 2017. Over the course of 4 years, we probably did somewhere between 600 and 800 weddings total.
We'll say 700 just for example's sake.
We'll say 744 weddings.
And then on average, what was like the star rating? Oh, every single bride give you guys.
You probably look at it right now. You look at the non-wedding.
Look at that.
But yeah, it's because it's still up there on the non-wedding wire. If you guys are looking for a wedding videographer,
absolutely,
or photographer, Val Cinema is a great They still run the same process, operation systems. It's just run by Sean now. Same videographers, same editor. Kendall is freaking phenomenal. I still use her for my own little side projects when we do like vacation trips or stuff. I have her edit my videos. So Val Cinema is a great option if you guys are looking for that. Now, as far as star rating, I don't know, or we were in like the 4.7, 4.8 somewhere. We still had high ratings.
Let's pretend it's just 4.
I think on Facebook it got down to like 1.6 one time because we pissed off some family. I don't remember.
And they remember like mom reviewing
all of their. I was like, man, there's
somebody's upset with you
bad.
guys.
Yeah. Like all of their friends and family just blew us up, and I was like, I think this is all the same.
Yeah,
the same wedding,
But on average, you guys were around like real reviews, 4 stars, let's say.
Yeah.
That's like phenomenal. Like throw that on Amazon ratings.
Not great, good.
It's good. It's like phenomenal. 800 people.
Yeah, over the course of that many weddings.
That's pretty freaking.
We had, It's funny, Sean and I used to brag, like, we've never missed a wedding. Like, that's not something you should have to brag about.
Yeah.
But like when you're doing 800 weddings
and you've never missed one, and everybody was so scared,
and you're using 200 plus different random contractors from around the country,
vetting them, making sure they're
calls. I remember close calls on Saturdays where Sean would call me and say, "Hey, our videographer won't answer the phone. We've got a wedding at 2:00 this afternoon.
Yeah.
What are we going to do?"
Yeah.
And he and I and our ops manager, Kyle, we would literally all just be getting on the phone, calling people all over the country, trying to find someone.
I feel like hundreds of companies wish they had that kind of retention and that kind of relationship.
Sure.
And it was 4 stars at a $2,000 product on average.
Yeah.
And like, imagine whatever product you have for a customer life cycle, here's 5 more products. Here's 5 more cheap products for what you want to go forward with. One of the models I'm really attracted to right now is just email list based companies, because you're specifically only looking for what those people want and you want to put it in front of them.
Yep.
And then you're going and finding different products, white labeling, looking through that. But most people are like thirsty and wish they had about 1,000 people that would be willing to spend $2,000 on one product.
Sure.
I don't know exactly what the product would be, but I don't think it's that tough to look like, hey, what are the 20 things that you guys are trying to figure out as a person, as a bride, as a new couple, as a family, and what can we do to bring that to you? I feel like they would have been super excited to have been able to like pull into that. And again, we're talking hypothetical place now. Like this is different than like, oh, could we have like where were we actually at? Because like back then, I don't think we really had the ability to know what a customer lifecycle was. What we didn't have.
Yeah, we were learning it all on this.
Like on the spot.
On the spot. But the other factor that a lot of people don't realize, like it's easy on the outside to look in and say, hey, here's what you should do. You know, how have you not thought of this?
Yeah.
But like, try getting in the freaking trenches. You know? Like,
and you have the blinders on, or you can't think about sending.
Really hard. Yeah. It's really hard to think that way when you're in the trenches and you're actually doing the work. And that's why they say you're working in your business, not on your business. And so Sean and I really tried to build some separation, where he was focused in the business and I would back up and focus on the business. And some seasons that really helped, but some seasons it was still really hard for me to actually focus on that. Not to mention I went through this 2-year process of being done with Val Cinema.
Right.
And I should have left in 2019.
Which was,
And I didn't, you know, and I just kind of bounced around and did a bunch of stuff and then eventually left in 2021.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think that there was just that 2-year period. Before that, we were just constantly growing, you know. We just constantly grew. Every month was higher in revenue. Every year was higher in revenue. But then there was just a point where I just didn't really know what I was doing. I just kind of went through this weird looking for something else, you know, and ended up in the friggin' Marine Corps. So, you know, thought that was going to make me feel better about my life, but
didn't.
No, you know, I would say no. But I wouldn't say I regret it.
Yeah.
I would say that maybe it was the wrong call at the time, you know. So I don't know, it's tough to say. I don't regret it. I think I'll be proud that I did it. It's hard as death.
Well, how much longer do you have? Like,
I've got 2 more years in. So I've been in for almost 4 years. So essentially 2019, I got approached by a buddy of mine, Bobby John, who wanted to start what's called an incubator, where we just get a team of guys that love startups and we're just constantly thinking of problems to solve. And we just are constantly starting new businesses and just finding the ones that really work. I got really excited about that, wanted to jump on board with him, then learned about his business, Band of Coders, got excited about that. So I told Sean, hey, I'm going to go look for something new.
Yeah.
And
it wasn't like
when I find it, I'm going to come back and we're going to basically sell off Val Cinema and we'll go do something new. So I left, and then a few months later, literally just, I've wanted to join the military since I was 12.
Yeah.
You know,
and I was there when that recruiter, I brought Alex Sossman to you from Waffle House. He was just walking around Atlanta and I pulled up with Alex Sossman and you were talking to a recruiter and I was like, oh my God. I've never seen your face like this.
Yeah, no, that was joining the military. So we just went to the gym and there was a grand opening thing. They had a bunch of tents there at the gym and there was a recruiter there for the Marine Corps. And I was like, oh man, wouldn't that be crazy if I joined the Marine Corps now?
Right.
And so having a business that was self-sustaining, had employees and a business partner running everything, having the time, you know, it just felt like, oh, now's the time, because all I had to do to join the reserves was go away for 6 months for active training, come home, and then it's 1 week in a month, right? Yeah. That's what they tell you. You know, last year I was gone for like 6 weeks for training, but anyway, so I did that and I was like, okay, this is it. So from the time I met that recruiter to the time I swore in was 10 days. Yeah. It happened really fast. Yes. My wife was super supportive, but you know, it happened really quick. And then I was in the delayed entry program for about 6 months before leaving. Then I went to training and then came home 6 months later, and Sean ran the business the whole time. It was great, you know. So, but anyway, I think that I was looking for something.
Yes.
And I just didn't know what it was, didn't know how to find it. And the Marine Corps was one of those outlets.
And I think, obviously, again, I think we both made the decisions we needed to grow to where we are now. Like, if we had done anything else, we would have just grown in a vastly different way.
Sure.
But obviously, like, one of the comments I made in my video was I just didn't have the perspective to see what it looked like to build, or have the ability to build or fix problems where I was at. That's something that I've wrestled with any project. It's something that even in the last place I was in, you were like, bro, just stick your head in there and figure it out. And then I was ready to leave that opportunity. And I decided, all right, like, I'm not going to leave. I'm just going to stay until this thing burns out. It'll burn out in a couple of months.
And it burned out.
And it burned out a week later, which is really funny. But what's awesome is, and I will say, what was really, really helpful was I stuck my head in and I said, I'm going to just take cash flow from this and I'm going to fix as many problems as I can here. I left with, hey, you are not being let go because you were a problem. You're being let go because we can't change anything. We have to figure this out. But you literally started fixing all the problems that we've been running into. Yeah. Like, finally started having that creativity.
It's a good way to be fired. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a great way to be, well, fired or let go. I don't know the terms.
It would probably be more let go. Yeah. Because they didn't really, firing is, They mean the same thing. You're not getting paid from them anymore.
I think they just didn't renew my contract. I was a 1099. It wasn't anything great.
Yeah, but either way,
I'm still on calls with them like every week, and then they call me and ask me for advice on creating content every once in a while. I'm like, I should just still charge you.
Yeah,
should
you should charge them.
I know.
Send them a bill.
I should send them a bill at some point. They'd probably pay it too. They feel bad. They're awesome. I love that team. Nothing bad to say about that team. But I definitely started to have the creativity by looking inward instead of outward, and that was something I was really proud of.
Focus is a big thing.
It's a huge thing. And then focus and then ability to see its purpose. And this is the hard thing. We left Val Cinema at the end of the day because we couldn't actually think about how to serve those people. And so it just wasn't something that got us excited. We didn't like get up out of bed to care about brides and their journey, or married people on the rest of their journey. Like,
I was more excited about that. And there were different seasons where we talked about married people focusing on marriage.
Yeah.
Because I was passionate about marriage.
Yes.
I'm married and I have personal experience with that. You know, but it's very difficult to make the relation or the transition from wedding to marriage, because what people don't realize is your wedding and what you think you're getting into in real marriage are just night and day completely.
It's they're different products and different things.
One is a battlefield.
Yeah.
Like, it's really hard to have a successful, strong marriage. It's really hard to have a great wedding too. You know, it's a lot of stress and pressure, but what you think you're working up to is not, you know, and so it was hard to make that transition, but I was passionate about that.
Yeah. Well, like, let's pretend that we have the energy now. Obviously, we don't have any. Sean, if you want to take any of this, go for it. But we have the creativity. We have the energy. What would it look like to look at those people and say, hey, 800 people, let's pretend it's 1,000.
Sure.
Like, it's been 12 months down the road. We're sitting in and we are outside of the problem, and we're able to look inward and say, hey, well, we have 1,000 emails. They all really loved us. They had a really good experience. And we send out, hey, we don't know, but we want to know how to make the next step of your journey amazing. Sure. And so we're looking at launching 3 to 5 products to you guys to help that process. Here's a couple of ideas. I don't know what that sounds exciting. What problems are you guys running into? How can we support you on a more emotional journey?
Yeah. I mean, talking to users is a good start.
On an EQ side, or on a marriage side, or on a relationship side, it's caring about someone enough to actually like go on dates with them. The term I've been using is depth. We talk about it in film or art. There's a flat character. There's a flat relationship. What if my little tagline was actually given an F about someone? Like, and I feel like when you go at it from that angle, it's not what idea is going to be awesome. It is an EQ skill of what problems do you have and what opportunities can I take to then get that information. My first million went into how they did conferences to do marketing research and marketing to people. And so they found a product everybody wanted, created a conference, and at the conference got a huge amount of user feedback and then launched a product at the conference. And so they got 50 grand in profit, and they basically were paid. And then they took all of those people and put them into a pipeline to then like launch a product. Instead of like paying for marketing, they actually were being paid to market.
Which I love, but people don't realize how like you basically just named 4 different major projects that
lots of different things.
Drastic amount of work.
And
like launching a conference is a ridiculous project.
Yes.
You know, getting people there, then building the new product for those people is a completely separate
6-month process.
You know, and so it's like it does take a lot of work. It's not as easy. It's not the concept is there. The concept is sound. Execution is everything.
Yes.
And it's hard to execute.
It's hard to execute, and then it's hard to go from I've been in a service business to what do I do next?
Yeah.
Like most service companies, especially in the wedding industry, try to do another service instead of expand their life cycle.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
We try to do another service where I was like, we should have learned more about software.
Yes.
I should have learned, because that's where the whole world is now.
I think the world's in software, and I think that that's not wrong at all, but you could also just as easily go into something as like simple as like product or digital product. The customer lifecycle was difficult, expensive, and not very long, but then you got a super high value customer, like a lifetime cycle customer, if you could figure out how to service them in another way. Implementation is the difficult part. Ideation, have a conversation with 30 people, partner with a brand, 50%. Hey, we have 1,000 lifetime customers. We want to partner with you 50%, 40, 60, 30, whatever percentage amount. You guys are phenomenal about taking care of this end. We have very high value customers. Let's connect them. We want to take our value of the company from 500,000 to 1 million or 2 million. Like take its value up by increasing the lifetime of the customer. And we could talk about specific ideas like an app, a dating app, a
A dating app for wedding clients.
Oh, a dating app or a date night app.
A date night app would work.
Yeah, like a date night app or a software, some kind of fun solution. Or you could go to them and find out like, hey, what are you spending money on? What are the blogs you reading? What are you watching? What are you struggling with?
Yeah.
And then, or maybe you find out from that process, oh, none of our brides actually care that much about going on dates, which is problematic. So maybe they care, maybe they're more vain. Maybe what they're really excited about is just jewelry. And you make a stupid, like once a year, they get like a subscription to all of the birthday gifts that you get as a bride. And it's like a box of gifts of whatever. And again, not a specific solution, because a specific solution has I think when you marry a product, you miss out on the opportunity to like find real solutions. Even just scaling it all the way back to no product and just converting that email list into a relationship of like, hey, subscribe to Val Cinema's marriage newsletter where we bring X, Y, Z information for your marriage. It's free. And in it, you're going to get free X, Y, and Z. You would have at the very least kept the customer involved inside of the journey.
Yeah, which is, again, same thing. Harder than it sounds.
It's harder than it sounds
because we made all of our revenue from a form of email marketing.
Yes.
But there's a difference between inbound lead generation, which is the lead generation that we used, where they're looking for you, or search-based lead generation, search ad, where they're looking, I'm a wedding client, I'm looking for a videographer. I find a videographer that I'm interested in talking more to, and so I put in my email address, right? And so now you've been opted into some type of email marketing system. That's what we used, right? And we had like 105% open rate, which is like ridiculous, you know?
Yes.
Whereas most email marketing, you have like a less than 10% open rate, sometimes 20% open rate. And so we had really successful results from that type of email marketing. Anytime we tried to do other types of email marketing, we got horrible results.
Talk about that. Like, what did that specifically look like? What were the problems that you ran into there?
Well, we just wouldn't get any interest.
Like
because,
open rate?
Yeah, because I think that, I think part of it is these people are just shopping and then they're just trying to dip out. They get what they need and they dip out, right? Yeah. And we're not offering enough value to actually get them interested. But it's also really hard to just generate value from email. Usually value is not generated in the email. No. Value is generated from some type of landing page on a website, and then the value add or the value offer that they're interested enough in. Or you use a lead magnet like an ebook or something like that, right? That's why people are giving you their email.
Yes.
And then you continue to add value in the email. Whereas with our strategy of generating leads was, you know, hey, we'll give you the pricing info, we'll set up an appointment, we'll jump on the phone with you. We killed it on that side of lead marketing, but email marketing with those leads. But then once they got what they wanted, they were done.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't really have another value add to give them. It was really hard to reconvert them. Yes. And so, you know, we just didn't have a lot of success with that. Now, I'm sure that a better email marketer or a better marketing manager would have been able to figure out a way to do that. We just didn't, right? And so...
And I guess the conversation, again, the theoretical, because I think what you ran into was there wasn't a clear value add, because you give such a high value add that it's tough to think back all the way to a lot of these companies that are selling on Etsy, Amazon FBA, doing friggin' TikTok FBA crap. Like some people literally will buy Alibaba stuff and then shoot TikTok videos, and that's where they get all of their lead generation from.
Yeah.
What they're forced to do is we aren't making any high value, so we have to give away free value, so we have to creatively come up with it. Where you guys was you were getting a lot of value, and it was hard to justify. Let me go all the way back down and pretend that we're making no money. But where our little cheat code is, we have this extremely like high value customer and high review customer that trusts us. Yeah. And so how could we provide value from zero? Yeah. That's challenging. I think it's obviously all of it is easier said than done. But like in some perfect world where all the systems were set up perfectly and you were able to pull back and either pull someone in, I think it would have been interesting to watch because you did a couple of things. You did content. You had a content guy, which for better or worse was just not, he was super cool. But the content was definitely like, here's content. It wasn't like, here's like, how do we create something unique in the marketplace for brides? Which like, that doesn't sound like too aggressive to the point.
No, I mean, we basically, You're talking about Matt?
Yeah, that was awesome.
Videos. Yeah, so like, I mean, he was great on camera, communicated a lot of great stuff that we needed, but he wasn't generating the content.
Yes.
He was recording the content.
Exactly.
There's a difference between on-camera talent and a content creator.
Yeah.
Whereas a content creator has to come up with
ideas, go looking
and ideas.
Entrepreneurial.
So, he did phenomenal at what we asked him to do. And so the problem was we didn't really have anybody on staff that was great at exactly what you're talking about. Hey, what content needs to be created?
Mm-hmm.
How do we engage our customers?
Yes.
How do we actually add more value? And it's really hard to do that when you're, like I said, stuck in the trenches, stuck in the weeds of the business, trying to come up with all these ideas, but then you're still distracted with, hey, we got to pay rent tomorrow. Like when you and I were running the business, like I remember, we need like $800 by next week. How do we figure that out? But there were points where Sean and I were at where we were like, we need $46,000 by next week. How do we figure that out?
That was all the focus.
It just it gets to a point when you stay, I don't know, you grow to a certain point without expanding your product line. Kind of diversifying your revenue streams. We had one revenue stream, so like it gets to a point where you're just choked out, and we got to a point where we were just like, we can't focus on anything but paying the bills.
Content creation in its purest form is the exact same thing as entrepreneurialism, and like good entrepreneurialism, which is tough. And it's, what do people want? How do I bring that to them? And in a tough way, if you were completely able to pull away from the problems that you kept having to solve, how do I focus 100% on that next piece? Like getting in those conversations, asking those brides, asking those people. I think we talked about at one point, one of the ideas I really liked was like, hey, ask all of those people to come on to either give them, their friend can have a 10% off their wedding package, or they get whatever stupid thing, come on the podcast, talk about their experience with their wedding with Val Cinema, but then also talk about what it's like being married, and then like creating an environment of brand awareness, but then also actually getting real user feedback of, this is what it was like, this is what we wish was better, and this is also like what we want now. Like, this is where we're going now.
Yeah, but I still think all of that has to be done early on. Like that should have been done early 2018, because that does get to a point where it's just you're almost too far gone. I don't think Val Cinema was unsavable or unscalable or ungrowable.
I don't think it's still
exactly, and Sean's doing a phenomenal job at restructuring the business, and I was stuck in, I want to run $100 million company, so I was only focused on growth without any,
That's like the facts though, like continue, but like that's like the key point.
That I was focused on growth, and I was willing to take enough risks.
Right.
I was willing to bankrupt, which we almost freaking did, and so, but like I was willing to take the risk to grow. So I was only focused on that without any caution or any wisdom of grow sustainably matters, and so like we just grew so fast and got to a point where it was really hard to focus on anything else but paying the bills, but we couldn't really grow anymore without having done any of that stuff. So like going back, there's a lot of things I would have done different. I would have grown a little slower, because you can go farther if you grow slower and more sustainably. I wouldn't have taken debt out just to grow. I mean, we started taking debt out when we didn't need it, and then a year later we had to take debt out because we had to, and just to pay the bills. And so like, and we're not talking about like a $1,000 credit card. We're talking about like a $90,000 MCA loan, merchant cash advance. That's where they charge you 42% interest and make you pay it back over weekly payments in a 6-month period. So like
Caleb Hammer, we take him on your podcast and talk to him about his 42% interest rate. Oh my gosh. Well, you guys pay that off whenever you.
Yeah, we eventually paid it off, and
terrible.
But like, we just got stuck in these cycles because I was focused on $100 million company without certain principles. Now I'm thankful the Lord was super gracious to us along the way. We've never missed a bill. We've never, we eventually paid off all of those loans. Eventually I got out of the business, and Sean is much more cautious, much less focused on growth and more focused on just building a sustainable business. And so he's transitioning how the business is structured. And so, I'm optimistic for him in Val Cinema to where when he pays off, me and what I sold the business for, because my partner bought it from me, and he pays off all of the debts and just kind of finds a point of stability, he's going to have a really profitable, comfortable business to run, Now, I still want to run a $100 million company.
Yes.
And that was one of the reasons I left, because I didn't think Val Cinema was 100% there. And I think that's okay. But I messed up Val Cinema to a point because I was focused on that.
Yeah, dude. multiple people have talked about this recently, but Ryan, I always quote Ryan. I listen to him probably more than anybody. But he talks about some of his least favorite business deals he's made with people are with people who needed it to be successful to take care of them. And they needed it to grow. They needed it to make a bunch of money. And it was always like the growth of it and the value of it was always stifled because it had to make money quickly. And he recently said, and I love this, and I love this for you and I this season, is the recession is the best thing that could ever happen to good business builders. Like he's saying, like it's great news because it forces us in the season that we're in to build smart, not quickly. Yeah. Because people aren't going to make a bunch of money.
You have to be strategic.
Like, you have to be strategic. You have to do all of the small value adds. They don't cost a bunch of money. The Val Cinema story hit however it was going to hit. And that was always going to be the case because neither of us had the EQ, IQ, or experience to actually do any of these things. Like even whenever I had some of these ideas, I didn't have the balls to come and be like, bro, like, let me help. And I didn't have the the value or the care to like press in and help. So I don't think there's any regret at all, but it is intriguing to see how this is going to affect what we do next.
Yeah.
Because I know like you're
lots of lessons learned.
There's a lot of lessons learned because again, like you said, like 2018 would have been the time to do this because we were so heads deep. But if you didn't have all of the stresses of having to fix this massive problem, having to do whatever kind of success, and it's funny because back then it was just like hustle. And I remember asking you a while back, like, man, I just feel like I'm not, and this was last year. The last thing I ever would have thought I heard from you, and it's really funny, is like, I don't feel like I'm doing anything past 2 o'clock. I don't feel like I'm getting anything done. And you were like, then stop working past 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
Like stop
working. It was contrary to my normal advice. Back in the day when I was real Grant Cardone, I was like,
11 hours.
Suck it up. Like,
I hate that we have to go to church on Sunday. Like, we should be working on Sunday. Well, I don't think you actually said that.
I don't think I said that, but I did have that mentality of just work more. If you're tired, it's because you're it's.
But I'm excited about what is next because that specific piece of, and I think you have the value for the customer, but you also have the, I don't need this to be successful, which is usually what makes people successful.
Yeah. And there's pros and cons to that, right? To speak to that a little bit. So there, when we started Val Cinema, we had to pay the bills.
We had to.
Right? So we just didn't have a choice.
Like 2-3 months we were making $8,000. $6,000.
Yeah. Our first month that we ever started Val Cinema, we made $6,000.
It was wild.
So it did happen quick. And I'm really thankful for that because we had to pay the bills, right? And so Selena and I had been living literally in a closet in Melissa and John, my sister's house.
And then we moved in together, which was its own.
And then we moved into each other, which was, yeah. So like, roommates are hard, but just we had to pay the bills. And so we did, and there was just that urgency of like, you have to, so you do. Now I'm in a scenario where I don't have to.
Yeah.
And I don't, and so like you're always going to have a problem. Which problem do you want? So like now I'm not to a point where I have to pay the bills. I'm getting there because these paychecks aren't going to last forever. But like I'm trying to be more strategic and use the time, be wiser and think about what next, the business that I want to start next. But there is a level of like, oh, well, you know what? I could take the day off and just spend with the family. There's like, it's hard to find that balance of, being able to take things slow and be wise and spend time with family and do the important things, but also still have a sense of urgency because urgency does matter.
It does. And the question is, how do you develop like manufactured and healthy urgency? So the books I've been heavy in right now, I just finished 7 Habits, classic, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yep.
And then I've been reading Your Best Year Ever by Michael Hyatt. I'm almost done with that one. How do you manufacture urgency is a huge part of healthy entrepreneurship or valuable entrepreneurship. And a lot of, like, I was watching La La Land last night. We watched that for Valentine's Day. Love that.
Classic.
I know, friggin' classic. And one of the statements in it was, you don't want it enough. And they were making fun of it, but that's like the classic actor. It was like, well, it just doesn't feel like you wanted it enough. But that's kind of on point. Yeah. It's like, whether we realize that or not, when we started Val Cinema, we wanted to not be hungry. And for you, you wanted to take care of your wife. I think that was something I never.
It is different, and you get it now.
I get it.
It's different. It is different when you have somebody to pay the bills for.
Being in a season where you can develop those motivators is huge, and that's why all of the business books, all of the art books, all of these ideas focus on what is your why? Like, and I think only to an extent Val Cinema was going to feed that for us, because we wanted more than just marriage to be our purpose, which is a big part of my journey. Is like, marriage is not the purpose of my life. My wife is not the purpose of my life. Honoring her, loving her is a big part of that, but it's not the only motivating factor of everything that's important to me. And I had a handful of opportunities in this pausing season where it was like, oh, am I going to go back into film? People are making movies. Should I do that? But I really wanted to stop and say, what actually matters to me? Like, what kind of people really frustrate me? What kind of people really get me excited and get me excited to serve? And then also like, I mean, you've been doing this, and this really encouraged Ellie and I, which was like, hey, let's vision board, but let's vision board about like more than just like the finances. Let's like vision board about our future, the family that we want to have, the problems in the world that we want to see. Ellie has been crushing it, just working all the time, but she is much more naturally a slower paced person. And so one of those dreams for us is that she could literally just do art 4 days a week and nothing else. Yeah. Like that's a big why for us right now. And developing those different layers of urgency that are our own, that aren't forced, I think is an interesting place for us to then make things for the world that are really important.
Yeah.
Because like capitalism or conscious capitalism is like the big popular term right now.
Yeah.
Is I care about people and I want to bring them things that matter.
Yeah.
And I want to capitalize on the opportunity of that transaction and that trade. And so it gets me excited about what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
And I think it's the challenging piece for what could have happened with Val Cinema. But again, growth.
There's a lot of things that piss me off, but like one of them is expecting somebody that's 17, 18 years old to know what they want to do with their life.
Bro,
you don't have enough life that you've lived
yelling at you
to, I mean, like I'm almost 30 now and I still have no idea. I know less now what I want to do with my life than I did 10 years ago. Yeah. Just, I don't know what I want to do with my life. And I don't think that it's fair to have expected a 17, 18, 19-year-old to know what they want to do with their life, what they want to major in college with for the rest of their life, what they, so like, not that that should stop someone that's young from trying, but what it made me realize was like, I didn't know how to vision board 10 years ago because I didn't know what my life should look like. Because 10 years ago, I was the one saying, I'm going to be working 6-7 days a week forever, 80, 90 hours a week, and somehow my family will still survive. So like now I'm like, no, I want to go live on a freaking farm. Yeah, dude, like you know what I want to do? It's different now because you realize what's important. You've gone through some stuff.
You live, you get hurt, you lose opportunities for intimacy, you grow opportunities for intimacy.
Yeah.
And then you have a pattern of those that says, oh, this is important to me.
Yeah.
Dude, you remember, I wanted to be a pastor. Like I wanted to be like a freaking senior pastor or a youth pastor. And I was telling somebody about it with Ellie, and Ellie was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, why?
You got canceled real quick.
You're talking about nonsense. I have a huge following, dude.
Yeah, one of the two. You might have a huge, I don't know. You probably got, some people would like you. But just the point that like when we started Val Cinema, we,
had no,
wish we knew then. Well, that's sure. How would you have known if you didn't go through it?
Exactly.
And so I don't really regret anything.
No.
I just want to have learned the lessons and move on. And that's it. And so like, I think you and I, we've had lots of conversations about this where let's learn from that.
Yeah.
What did you learn? What did I learn?
Yeah.
I learned that I am aggressive and that I make people standoffish and feel uncomfortable to talk to me about stuff. I learned that I am a control freak and I want to control the environment, control the finances, control the direction.
Yeah.
And I need to allow what somebody else wants to be just as important as what I want.
Right.
And so like there's lessons that we have to learn and that matters for partnership in business. And it hopefully will make me a better partner, whether it's with you or anybody else in the future.
Yes. Because so many people would see what we did as like, oh my God, they did what nobody could do. Like everybody wishes they could make a frick ton of money. And we look at it and say like, oh my gosh, I wish I could do what everybody else is doing. That next step for me, ironically, has been like, I was in film because you would be on a project and you saw this because you produced a feature film, but you were like scrappy. I would be on,
you're scrappy.
Yeah, man. I'd be on a feature project and it was a low budget feature. And they were dropping $9,000 over 5 days, or it's 90 grand over 5 days.
Yeah. I know what you're saying, where they spend money on unnecessary stuff.
It's tough because it's not, but it's not necessary because it doesn't return anything, right? Like it's not like a huge ROI. Not a bunch of people are going to watch it.
Yeah.
It's very fascinating. And so what's become much more fascinating to me is you'll have people tell a very similar story with $0 in 5 seconds. and have a massive amount of like,
well, we didn't get a massive amount.
No.
Yeah, we didn't get anything.
Story with no money.
Yeah.
But even beyond what we were doing, because we were doing like short films, we were having large crews. You got mofos on friggin' TikTok, getting 300,000 views, 300,000 followers with 6 months of consistency. And what I love, which is what's so intriguing to me with the parallels of like entrepreneurship and content creation, is they're just going out and saying, what do people want and how do I bring them there?
Yeah.
And how do I talk to those people and figure out what they want? And wherever they're at in that process. So I'm chatting with looking at repping as like a monetization agent for a young TikToker who's doing film content, super duper cool, super passionate. And he has a huge following, but doesn't know how to monetize it.
Sure.
And what I'm convinced of is the parallel of what I think we ran into, is he's really good at knowing what people want while also having no clue how to ask what people want.
Yeah.
Because he knows how to make free videos of what everybody wants, but doesn't know how to ask that next question.
Yeah.
And in the same way, we would make a product that people would spend money on, but we didn't know how to make things that hundreds of thousands of brides would want to look at, or whatever the next project. So it's very interesting to look at like what you would have imagined, like what I would have imagined myself being really excited about 3 years ago. I wanted to make films and waste a bunch of money. And now I'm like, which is not a waste, it's relative. To, I just want to know how to tell stories that make people feel closer to you as quickly, as fun, as simply as possible.
Yeah.
Like, and starting to explore some of the things. We'll see what it looks like in, what is it? I'm 24 now. Whenever I catch up to you in 6 years.
You're not going to catch up, but...
Well, if you die,
okay.
That's rough. I'm so sorry. When I'm 29, I'm sure it'll look completely different, because I think you started Val Cinema at my age.
Yeah, I was 24, 25.
Yeah.
When you started.
I'm like starting my journey now. And so all of the things.
Yeah. And I'd say you have like sort of more experience than I had when I was your age.
Just like
in certain scenarios. Obviously, I had managed big factories.
Yes.
And that taught me a lot about management and things like that. But like, you had a very diverse level of experience, and that teaches you a lot. And so, using that where you're starting now is
see where that takes.
It's really valuable, And so like, I'm excited to see where you go, especially when you turn 25 and your brain fully develops.
I got my brother not a dummy anymore. No, I'm
just kidding. But yeah, I'm excited to see what happens.
I am, dude. And I'm excited to see what you create, because I think you've hit that stride where obviously you've developed what you think, but you've had enough hurt in the experience of the things that you've grown where it's like, this is what I actually want to make.
Sure.
I know that you're exploring software, which I'm about. My biggest complaint, everything that I've heard about what you're working on is very product focused, but you have a customer brain now. Like, you have a user feedback brain.
Yeah. So, I mean, we talked about this a little bit. There's a difference, right? So right now I'm focused more on, I would like to get into tech startups.
Yeah.
And I want to get into the kind of tech startups that require venture capital. So
yeah.
You go raise $1 million of seed money and from investors, and then you take that and you try to grow your company, as opposed to, you bootstrap the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so now I'm still a huge fan of bootstrapping. I think that every startup should think in their head, bootstrapping is my first priority, venture capital is my second priority,
right.
Because, you shouldn't say, well, if I don't get investors' money, then I'm not going to build this startup.
Yeah.
You either are excited and committed to your startup or you're not. So,
yes.
But I want to build a tech startup in that environment that has enough potential that people would invest millions of dollars, because I want to grow something really big, solve a lot of problems, build something valuable. And so that's what I'm focused on right now.
Yeah.
What that's led me to is literally I've been taking coding classes to learn about coding for myself. The reason is because I ran into the issue of just not being able to find enough people that are software engineers to help build ideas that I want to build fast enough. And so my thought was, okay, well, you know what, I'm going to learn this new skill. I'm going to go down this path of like, maybe I can build them myself. And maybe if I can't build anything fast enough in the next 6 months and I have to get a job, then I have a flexible remote job that I can get that still allows me the time to focus on startups on the side. So what that's done for me is it's put me in this weird position where I can't focus as much on what problems in the world need to be solved.
Yeah.
And I've had to focus more on learning a new skill. And so I've kind of gone back to school almost in just thought of, I'm not in the same position of like, let me just start something. Let me find some problems to solve and let me go solve them, because I don't have enough knowledge yet to be able to solve that problem. And so I'm having to think, okay, cool. What's something that I know I could solve today,
Yes.
or something I know I could build today that's just interesting to me? And those are the projects that I'm focused on. So obviously Film Flow is the current project. That's basically just an AI screenplay generator. I know the film industry. I kind of understand the tech that needs to be built there to make that happen. I know that it's something that would add value, to people to be able to focus on their craft and actually pump out film projects instead of spend 6 to 12 to 10 years, just focused on, let me just write the perfect script. That's kind of where the thought is, but it's not really something I'm super passionate about. It's another Val Cinema thing that's just like, it's a learning experience because I don't know enough yet.
Yeah.
But eventually I do want to switch gears and say, okay, what project needs to be built? What do customers really need, and evaluate that kind of school of thought as opposed to, what's interesting. Because Val Cinema was just, hey, well, we want to do film. Let's make some videos, And so, but it wasn't what needs to be solved. What problems do people have that I can solve? And so I do need to switch gears in that. I'm just not there yet because I'm basically back at school.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that was interesting to me in the last conversation we had is we talked about a down the road path and what this is in that down the road. So we have the goal. The goal is like make amazing products, then be able to create incubators, cultivate really interesting minds. And I think at the end of the day, you want to take your passion for solving problems and then your passion for excellence and just drive, and you want to really help people with creative ideas make things that don't suck by having like excellence. Like if that was like, if I could boil down like Ben's core strength is not sucking, like just you don't suck and you make things that are actually good and you value the customer and you don't like drop the ball. Like you're
with
really
an asterisk. I do drop the ball, and I would say everything I build is kept together by duct tape.
Yes. But it stays together
because I care more about speed than I do about quality. But I do have a lot of pride in, a certain level of quality.
Yes.
So Val Cinema, I would have been,
excellent.
I wouldn't put out anything I was embarrassed about, but I didn't put out anything that was near as good as what Josh could put out. Because I cared more about speed. And volume.
And that's like a relative, like entire whatever kind of Venn diagram of quality in whatever area.
Sure.
But I think that a lot of what you do well is let's find the fastest way there, but also like keep track of the information. You did project management really well. I always talk to you about like process for project management. And in this grand scheme of down the road being able to help entrepreneurs, which is, I would love to hear your voice in that. This is, I want to be able to understand this field more. So let me understand it and take the fastest route possible to getting my head wrapped around it. I kind of did this in the NFT sphere. And I found out want nothing to do with NFTs at least for like 5 years.
Freaking hate it.
Bro, I hate NFTs.
Hate crypto. Spent a whole week in Colombia at that crypto conference with your boss.
It like
just stuff goes straight over my head.
And again, like I know for a fact the people I worked with there are gonna watch this. I love you guys. Crypto has a lot of potential, but I hate it for the reason of it is a product. It is not a people. And I couldn't wrap my brain around. I'm a very people person. And so
I get it.
Like there's all the reasons, 30 hours of conversations. Maybe someday I'll confront them and claim to like accuse them of stealing. What is it? I won't say the numbers that we made. But as I regain my thought here, I think that was supposed to propel me into understanding the crypto market so then I could take it to other places. And I found out I didn't want to do that. But what I really wanted was something more specific, which is I could explore in another podcast episode or whenever. What you want is to be able to understand the tech development space, and you're trying to take whatever clearest path you can to being able to develop things in that world so you can bring that to investors and then be able to eventually just play the CEO role. Like that's the desire.
Yeah, I don't want to freaking go. I want to build and lead companies.
Yes.
And it's right now I'm just in a weird season where it's hard to do that without being like at Val Cinema. I was holding the camera with you.
Yeah. We were understanding the product.
In tech,
but then you stopped using the camera at all.
Exactly. I moved to a point where I didn't, and that happened fast, 4 months after we started. Yes. And so, but there is a point in startups that are very difficult to get something off the ground without doing all the work yourself.
Yes.
And so
the goal is the specific goal that's not attached to the thing that you're currently doing is what is the fastest way for me to understand this? So then I can take the next step, which is being able to build really valuable products.
Yeah.
I am always convinced, this is my presupposition, is that if you spend like 80% of your time on the people in that field, you can get a really clear vision, and then people will rally behind you because you've been publicly sharing that you care about this problem. Like, I've always experienced that. Editors want to work with me for free. Shooters, I was able to get so many like 1,000-day rate shooters because I had a clear vision for a project, and they saw that I really would value that. That's a presupposition. Every field's different. Every skill set's different. And I think we saw that with the film that we were shooting. We should do a whole podcast episode and maybe finish that movie. That's
I did have like 3/4 of a movie just sitting on a shelf.
So I could probably finish it. I've gotten pretty good at long form. But we'll talk about that another time. I don't think I'm the person to say, here's the right path for you to figure out what it is. But I do think it is worth exploring. This is the result I want. Now I can get advice from really, really smart people and go on whatever other podcast or whatever other mentor and say, what is the best way and what are the best set of skills that I can use to be able to push down that path? I was talking to Errol about this specifically about you, because his dream down the road is to create an incubator for entrepreneurs to create new things.
Yeah.
And I was saying like, oh my gosh, yours and Ben's visions are like on point. He was like, cool, let's jump in.
It's very similar.
You guys are very similar.
Lives are very similar. It was hilarious when I thinking, dude lands in Medellin, Colombia at like 8 p.m. and we get there 3 minutes into the taxi drive and we're talking about how similar our wives are. And I was like, I just met you. But like, yeah, we're pretty much the same person.
Yeah, I think you guys, he wants to jump on a call with you is what he said and just talk about your vision. But he's a big fan, because he struggles with this too, of if you are a builder or a leader, what are the ways in whatever industry can you set yourself up to just focus on that? Like, he's been yelling at me, do not become a video editor, do not become a content creator. If what your goal is to help unstuck content creators, to help them figure out how to make money, like make content to deliver that process, which is what I'm doing right now. That's probably my version of coding is to make podcasts, TikToks. I'm going to do that and commit to that. But at the end of the day, I want Will H. Baker to build an email list and a newsletter and maybe one product and to sell that to No Film School for whatever. Like, that's all I want to do. And so this is the purpose of this is I want to learn these lessons to propel that. But Errol might be a good voice. There's actually a podcast I was on called the Unstuck Podcast. And he just asked me questions about what was important to me and did the whole why.
Yeah.
And that is a whole different thing. I don't know that specific thing. I don't think I'm qualified enough to like give that advice, but I do think if you spent time exploring that, you'd feel a lot more comfortable and confident in the path. And then you'd feel like, oh, like, I don't know, like I could project manage 5 content creator, 5 coders to make X problems because I understand it enough. And I could make 10 grand off of it as like a freelance, not even as a business. And that gives me like coders that trust me. And I can ask them to work on projects because I get them this kind of money. Sure. And so they feel safe. Again, there's all the problems that could come up with that or the reason why that's not the right path. And I have no clue. But that definitely, I think that there's definitely an ability to say like, what is the person or the passion or the why that you care about? And then all of the decisions are adjustable.
Sure.
Like all of the things that are like, man, is this right? Can be pivoted. But the path, the goal is a lot clearer.
Yeah.
But that's a 30-hour conversation. What, like, just for the sake of this, what in this perfect world would that future for you look like? Man, Ben is, and obviously you don't know perfectly, but like Ben is doing what he was supposed to be doing. He's like pursuing, caring about, creating, bringing to the world what is really important.
Yeah, I don't know. I think now that I'm getting older and gaining more experience, I'm learning how little I actually know about what I want. So I don't actually know what I want.
Yeah.
You know, I thought I wanted to join the Marine Corps and you know, go jump out of helicopters and shoot bad dudes. But, you know, what I really do is I camp in 17-degree weather for 4 days. You know, so it's like I know a lot less about what I really want to do than I originally thought. I know right now, for the next 10 years, I really want to build some really successful companies and grow my family's wealth and take care of my family and my parents and my wife's parents. And like, that's what I'm focused on now, is just how do I build companies that help people and actually grow my financial situation for my family. That's like what I'm focused on today. Long term, I would love to do the incubator thing. I'd love to have an incubator primarily focused on young individuals coming out of high school, helping them avoid college and go straight into something that they're passionate about in the startup realm. whether they want to be a coder or a CEO or, marketing or whatever. Like I would like to have an incubator that's focused on that and do the Y Combinator style thing where, we're focused on helping people build companies. And then if their companies are successful, we win too.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would like to do in the long term. But then beyond that, I don't really know. I don't know what's like this, because I think I think it will change over time. I think there will be a point where I just want to go travel overseas and explore the world or do missions work or plant churches. I don't know. I have no idea what I'm going to really want to do long term, but I know for now I'm focused on just building companies, building my family, trying to change our financial situation. And we'll know more as I get older and realize I didn't really want to do some of the stuff that I thought I wanted to do.
What if all of the dreams that you have for your long terms change and you could explore them now and just get over the fact that you don't want them anymore? Like, what would it look like to potentially, instead of letting that desire for something way out in the future, whatever the incubator is, and we've talked about this, but like, what would it look like for you to get what you want out of that now? Like, because there's reasons why that matters to you, there's reasons why you want young people who are coming out, who are wanting to develop these skills to help them develop specific things. And I think the question I have on that front is, if it's young people wanting to build something and using the incubator term, like what specifically and why, and like what is wrong with, like, let's just say what's wrong with that person. And I think one of the examples that probably clicks with you is like a me who is not organized, who does not know how to take that path.
Sure.
That probably parallels a lot of that experience, or different people that you've met who are like, man, I don't know. And I see you doing some of that now with some young people, which I think is awesome. Like, you're taking people who have skills and you're wanting to like develop them. But like, what specific person, more than just a person with a trade skill going and building something in an incubator situation instead of going to college, like what about that person matters so much to you?
Well, I like to help people reach their potential. And I think that, you talk about how can I do that now? I think that leading a company is going to help me do that, because that's what you do as a company leader, is you help people reach their potential. You help coach them. You help recruit the right people and give people opportunity. And so I think I'll get that. I got that at Val Cinema. I loved hiring people. I loved hiring people so much. I hired too many people and had to fire some of them in one day, like that. So like, I do like to hire and coach and lead people.
Yeah.
So I think that I'll get to do that in the company format if I can actually build a company that solves the right problems and makes money, because then you can offer opportunity to people. But there are certain aspects about wanting to do the incubator thing or the investor thing in the future that is exciting to me that you can't do without money.
100%.
You can't, so it's just like, that's fine. There are certain things that I want to do that you just can't do yet, and you can't have everything that you want yet. And I think that realizing that as I get older is a healthy thing, because for someone like me that just wants everything, I just want to eat all the chocolate chip cookies. Cool, dude, you're going to get freaking fat.
Yeah.
Like that. I've learned that. I'd say I've learned the lesson that it's a reality. I haven't learned how to say no to the chocolate chip cookies.
Yes.
But
yes.
I'm learning that now, that like there are certain things I want in my future that I don't think are realistic to try and make happen today.
Yeah.
I'm being a little bit slower, like my running freaking trip. I was like, oh, well, I want to run 60 miles in a race. And I did it too fast, and I kept getting running injuries. And so like, there are certain things that's like, hey, why don't you just slow down a little?
Yeah.
And that's okay.
But so obviously there's the large piece of the goal, which is like, here's what it looks like X. This is what it looks like in its entirety. But then there's the things that come out of it, which you illustrated in leading a company. You're going to be leading people. You're going to be like managing people. You're going to be coaching people and helping people actually push projects forward. In that vein, there's a specific skill set and desire that's being accomplished. And I think that's more interesting, and that's more like core to who we are as people than oftentimes than the specific goal. It's a lot more about like, this is what like makes me feel better. This is what makes me feel purpose. Because I know that right now it's like, you have to go to school, you have to go work out, you have to do a bunch of things that you don't want to do. But I think that there's there's always in some capacity we need to do the 20% work that produces 80% of our results, instead of like, we need to do the 80% of our work that does help us get that 20% over that we need. Obviously, like we need to get that little piece over from all this extra work, but then we're missing we're missing out on that, like that strong skill that gives us the drive. And I'm just curious what that looks like for you, because I think that's where a lot of your who comes into play, is that specific skill and desire. And you get that in a lot of ways. I think you get that in your personal life, but I know you feel like you want more of that in the professional aspect. You want more of that.
Yeah.
I don't know what that looks like, but that's kind of what I'm curious and excited to see more.
Yeah. I'll let you know when I figure it out.
Yeah. Well, this has been an hour and 48 minutes. I'm just going to let it all post out, and I'll take whatever clips I can from it.
Please get it done.
But this has been a lot of fun, dude. I appreciate you taking some time. Obviously, we didn't really jab at each other that much. I don't think there was any beef.
No. I mean, I'm pissed.
No. My mom was like, are you guys okay?
She called just yeah. She was like, is Josh mad at you? Are you mad at Josh? No.
Dude, I'm excited. I was like, I'm probably going to break my poor mother's heart this year. I'm gonna work on it. But I appreciate your willingness. I think the biggest desire for me in starting here was I want to push up against the places I've probably had the most difficulty having these kind of conversations with, which has been us. Yeah. It's like there's like 5-10 people in your life that you're just like, oh, I can't have an intelligent conversation with this person.
Sure.
And this was one of the ones where I wanted to rip the Band-Aid off and go into Jeju and just take off my clothes. Because it's uncomfortable and not how I was raised, but you're my Jeju.
Okay, I'm not loving where the analogy's going, but
the principle.
Yes,
the principle.
I understand.
I really appreciate the time you gave into this, man, and I am excited, and I'm looking forward to what you got next.
Cool. Me too, man. I'm excited to follow along the podcast journey. I told Celine the other day that I think if you keep consistent, like I really think that you're gonna make something special out of this, because you got a lot of great things to say. You've got a lot of great talent. The videos come out great. So
cool, man.
Thanks, dude. Love you, dude.
Love you.